Good morning. How are you? Good. Well, I'm delighted to be here. Being part of this Energy Thought Summit really checks three very exciting boxes for me. First, I'm a booster of Drew and Jason and the ETS team. I participated in the forum last year in Chicago, and I just thought it was wonderful. Brought together some of the most interesting energy stories around and some very, very compelling people. So I'm glad to be here to connect with all of you. I also get a trip to Austin, Texas, my first. And the buzz about Austin is that it is a city of great cultural transformation. It is getting younger in its population, more hip with its music and art scene, more innovative with its energy story like Pecan Street. And like the rest of the digital world, it's getting more connected. Make no mistake, Austin is a city marching into a position of relevancy for the future. And third, I have the opportunity to talk about energy industry transformation in a city that shares some of the movement's key features. Now, while our 100-year-old electric industry model is not getting any younger, with its evolving clean ethos, it is getting more hip. And with its technology revolution around solar storage and efficiency, it's getting more innovative. And the move to a digital platform, well, our industry is more connected than ever. The electric energy industry, the foundation of the dominant economic and social change of the 20th century, has acknowledged that this is a new millennium, that change is upon it, has self-reflected, and is looking to reassert its relevance in the 21st century. Those of us who are looking to facilitate this renewed relevance must take a lesson from the 21st century's social shift reflected in places like Austin, and from the 21st century's economic shift reflected in the business structures of companies like eBay, Facebook, and Uber. So the journey we have begun in this industry is nothing short of a revolution. Now, the last time we seriously used the word revolution in this country was the 1960s. I was a child in the 1960s, but I was not quite old enough to be a child of the 60s. Having had a ringside seat, but a passive seat to the 60s revolution, feeling forced to claim my era as the 1980s, well, that has always left me feeling a little deprived. First, deprived of a revolution, and the disco revolution is no revolution. And second, deprived simply of a respectable decade to call my own. Now, really now, who can identify with leg warmers and parachute pants? And are there any Milli Vanilli fans out there? I didn't think so. So this is my revolution. Moving a classic 20th century service, fossil-based, mass-produced, and pipeline-architected, to a 21st century model worthy of a digital economy and digital world is one of the most impactful endeavors of this era. In the convergence of energy and digital communication lies the third industrial revolution, so christened by Jeremy Rifkin, the major dynamic of our time for technological and social change. This convergence has the capacity to create an energy ecosystem that can be a catalyst for addressing some of the millennium's most pressing questions. How do we create a service that can spur economic prosperity, much in the way the electric industry drove 20th century prosperity? And how do we do this while addressing the ultimate game changer of the millennium, the effects on the planet's atmosphere, oceans, and organism of our industry's heavy reliance on carbon-generating resources? The end game is clear. For economic prosperity and quality of life, we need an energy system that is cleaner, leaner, ultra-reliable, as well as a service that ultimately responds to the clarion call of the millennial customer, customized, connected, and communal. This is, after all, the age of the smartphone and the internet, the foundational digital tools that put a highly personalized world at our disposal, connect us to anyone or everyone and anything and everything through the channel or platform that makes it all cheap and easily accessible, and which facilitate creation of new communities, even ecosystems, through the unique and unrelenting connectivity that they serve up. Accessible, cheap, custom and communal, extended families sharing their daily lives on Facebook, video game players located across the globe linked by technology, sellers and buyers interacting across the eBay platform, and hopeful singles connecting through OkCupid. The convergence of these high-tech 21st century tools with a legacy 20th century service like electric energy creates endless possibilities and a multitude of questions. What is clear is that for the community of the 21st century, energy will emerge from the constraints of 20th century mass production functionality and a pipeline business architecture. From the shadow of the Henry Ford philosophy, you can have it your way as long as your way is black, square, and steel, and be recreated in the true Burger King fashion. You really can have it your way. And for the community of the 21st century, the always-on generation, part of having it your way means energy will be more reliable, resilient, and of higher quality than ever before. For the community of the 21st century, energy will bring consumers out of isolation and connect them via energy ecosystems, turning them into market players and energy traders and members of energy communities, driving up the use of cleaner resources and driving down prices with each successive connection. And for the community of the 21st century, energy will shed its chains of control at the commanding heights of big and centralized, with solar panels and batteries, instead literally distributing the power to the people. It's the 60s all over again, and it is a revolution. Clean, lean, ultra-reliable, customized, connected, and communal, this is what the revolution is all about. And according to our DOE Secretary, Ernie Moniz, it is nothing short of a revolution, and we are in the revolution now, game on. So we can agree that there is substantial agreement that there is a revolution. Secretary Moniz and Jeremy Rifkin are good primary sources for me. We can agree that there is significant agreement as to many of the features of the post-revolutionary state. However, just as there is with any revolution, there is some remaining disagreement as to the means of achieving the end state. Lenin didn't agree with Marx on what nature of proletariat should lead the revolution. Gandhi didn't agree with Nehru on the governmental structure of the country after the revolution. And Fidel and Che? Well, Che may have started out with Fidel on a boat in the warm tropics, but he finished up all alone in Bolivia out in the cold. In this third revolution, it is no different. There is much debate on the vehicle for achieving the goals. The seminal question of the debate is whether the grid, as we know it, has a real role to play, or whether we discard it for a more disaggregated model. Whether the energy future is connected and communal through the vehicle of the grid, or customized to the point of disconnection. And those who envision the latter scenario paint a picture of home-based power plants, solar arrays, and batteries, owned or leased, maintained, and operated at the individual homeowner level. They have declared that the grid is dead, promoting the theory that the best way to a superior energy future is for everyone to tear down rather than leverage the complex existing architecture. To this chorus of the disconnected, I respond as would Mark Twain. Reports of my death are greatly exaggerated. And here's what they're missing. In a world where customers have rooftop solar and basement batteries, where there are more electric vehicles on the road, where power is coming from and going to many different places, the grid becomes more, not less, important. And this is so because of the power of networks. Everyone in this audience understands the power of a network. The idea that creating more connection creates greater scale, efficiency, and impact than anyone or anything can achieve alone. It's called Metcalfe's Law. A network becomes more valuable the more uses are made of it. Facebook isn't such a powerful tool with 100 people, but get 1 million or 1 billion, and you have something that's transformative. Uber doesn't exist with a single vehicle, but scale that up to millions available at any time in any city of the United States, and the customers flock to create a transportation exchange. Networks are powerful because networks enhance choice by connecting multiple actors, buyers, sellers, support service providers. Networks generate efficiencies by reducing market friction, connecting the right people at the right time at the right price. And networks create opportunity by opening up markets, exchanges, and possibilities. According to UC Berkeley professor Carl Shapiro, there is a central difference between the old and new economies. The old industrial economy was driven by economies of scale, and the new economy is driven by the economies of networks. So the power of networks has been unleashed in the third industrial revolution. And the principal mode of the network's empowerment is the emergence of the business architecture that has evolved to exploit its benefits, the platform. Platforms are the dominating business model of the 21st century. 60 of the 100 largest companies in the world derive 50% or more of their revenue from platform businesses, and these businesses are fundamentally different from 20th century business models. Unlike the pipeline business model of the 20th century, where the focus was on product, pushing it through a linear pipeline of mass production, mass marketing, and ultimately a mass sale, the platform focus is on the interaction, or connecting individual consumers and producers in a low-friction, customized experience, utilizing robust feedback loops and deep data pools, all of this culminating in value creation. The platform features a shift from product to interaction, from the sale to the experience, from tightly defined roles like buyer and seller to constantly morphing participation migrating around an ecosystem like prosumers, from data largely locked in the pipeline to data distributed out through the ecosystem, from linear process to multi-dimensional connectivity. And this is all constructed on the building blocks of infrastructure, data, and transactions. Companies like Facebook, which uses its vast data pools, interactive feedback loops, and well-designed algorithms to connect people with the information and communities they are most interested in. eBay, that uses its data analytics to identify what each platform member is most likely to desire and connecting them with the optimal seller. These companies are to the third industrial revolution what GM, US Steel, and Westinghouse were to the 20th century's second industrial revolution. So if the pipeline is the business architecture of the last century and the platform is the lifeblood of the new economy, what does the future hold for an energy system that has for 100 years pumped product from mass production facilities through the pipeline of the grid to relatively passive consumers, but which also boasts as a core feature a network built up over 100 years? Where does that creature fit? Well, in our view, the electric grid that is being redesigned through digital and other technological breakthroughs has the capacity to become one of the most impactful platform architectures of the millennium. Facilitating the migration of power across the grid in an efficient manner, inviting a multitude of actors, sellers and buyers of energy, services, and information to interact on the grid as the ecosystem generates all the benefits networks have to offer. Enhancing choice by incorporating multiple energy options and cleaner forms of energy to energy use structured and priced by time of day to options to use no energy at all. Generating efficiencies by incenting energy flows or disincenting energy usage at the right time, at the right place, at the right price. Creating opportunities by facilitating the creation of 21st century marketplace of the people. The opportunity is boundless, and this is the revolution. It is at once technological, business model, and social, and tomorrow's energy system will be optimized as the ultimate Uber. So we're in the very early stages, and the shift will take time. This is an industry that holds in trust a substantial public investment in hard assets. But we are moving forward and are working on the building blocks for what is to come. Like all platforms, the electric energy platform has three elements. The foundation, of course, is the physical grid, the infrastructure element, the network composed of utility lines and poles, but with new smart technology is operating more reliably and dynamically than ever before. Increasingly, it is a digital network, the data element, because so much of what we're doing now, the smart systems we are adding, and much of what we'll do in the future is built on telecommunications and sensor technology. And third, it's a social network, the transactional element, because For ComEd, our electric grid connects us directly and through multiple channels to 10 million people. Every grid in the United States has unparalleled access to everyone in their service territory. So how are we building this triple network, the platform at ComEd? Well, let me start where we've started, by modernizing the grid. In 2011, the General Assembly in Illinois passed a piece of legislation, the Smart Grid Act. We're now 4 years in. And in that time, we've replaced 2,000 miles of cable, installed 2,500 smart switches, rebuilt 20,000 manholes, and in one of our most impactful programs, we've installed over 2 million smart meters. This work has allowed us to lay the foundation for the 21st century network and deliver on the promises we made to the people of Northern Illinois, improving reliability and delivering the means to more affordable power. By avoiding nearly 6 million outages since inception and improving storm restoration times by 30%, we have seen record reliability performance, and we've generated savings and benefits of over $1 billion for our customers. By leveraging smart meters and piloting a peak rebate program this past summer, we saved customers hundreds of thousands of dollars in just hours. Our commitment to an ultra-reliable grid extends into uncharted territory. We're conducting an engineering assessment on a new innovative cable, a superconductor, that it would allow us to network the main substations in the Chicago loop, creating the ability to lose one or more of the substations in that loop and transfer the load to the remaining substations to keep the city center up and running. And there's more to come. The digital network, the second layer, is the communications and sensor overlay to the grid, providing the data to optimize both grid operations and the transactional platform for the marketplace. The emergence of the digital element in our business begins to move us from usage to uses, from a pipeline business with pricing based on product to a platform business with pricing based on interactions across the platform. By way of optimizing the grid and exploring the question of uses, just this month, ComEd announced a proof of concept initiative, this one with smart water meters. In partnership with American Water this summer, we'll connect up to 500 smart water meters to our existing AMI system and test the ability to offer more precise data to American Water customers for more efficient management of the water system. This will also test the ability of the digital network to create efficiencies among multiple infrastructure businesses. And while we're at the starting point generating data to facilitate transactions, last week we announced that we will begin to track GHG emission impacts of the AMI meters. And for the last 6 months, we have been building a hosting capacity study for purposes of bucketing our 5,000 feeders into 20 categories as a foundation for locating and pricing distributed energy resources. We're setting up for a future of clean and lean and establishing the prices for the marketplace. Finally, on the social network front, we're focused on the customer experience, which incorporates the elements of customization and connectivity. We have launched a variety of portals targeted at the needs of individual customer communities. Our property manager portal allows property managers to orchestrate tenant moves with ComEd online. Our municipal portal allows municipalities to prioritize restoration during emergencies online. This year, we will pilot personal reliability reports, and we just launched a customer-controlled meter status check. This functionality allows customers to ping their own AMI meter through our call center, over the web, or over their app. Customers can ping and find out whether their outage is system-related or it's related to equipment in their own home. And we've partnered with 2 startup analytics companies that take data off our smart meters and reconstitute that data, allowing customers to see exactly how and when they use energy with the means to take action. The Bidgely application disaggregates usage data all the way down to the appliance level, and Meter Genius shows real-time usage and offers incentives for reducing usage points that can be used to make purchases around town. So I've described for you the business architecture of the platform and the 3 core building blocks. I want to just finish with one additional project that I think is very important and very unique in the new ecosystem. The project is our Bronzeville microgrid, and its unique role is to explore, in addition to technological impacts of certain technologies on the system, to explore customer engagement and empowerment in this revolutionary world. It's going to be located on Chicago's South Side. The microgrid will feature solar generation, battery storage, a community dashboard for neighborhood engagement, and many other smart features. It's situated next door to the existing Illinois Institute of Technology microgrid, and Bronzeville will become host to the first microgrid cluster in the world, meaning the 2 microgrids can be dispatched across one another. With Bronzeville, though, it's as much about the neighborhood as it is about the technology. As in every industrial revolution, the social change brought by technological change is the real story. And the third is no different. What Bronzeville will explore is whether the introduction of technology can help revitalize a neighborhood, can spur innovation through connections to energy startups, can drive to clean through energy and transportation pilots, can help develop a workforce of the future by connecting students to a living STEM project in their backyard. We've got a short video we're going to show you on Bronzeville.
Imagine a community where the streetlights could anticipate your steps and provide you with a safely lit walking path to your car at night. Imagine a city where that same car has just been freshly charged at a local publicly accessible EV charging station. Imagine a neighborhood where a group of residents come together to create a community solar garden, saving money and even selling their excess solar energy back to the grid. This is a community of the future, a community where the smart grid is fully leveraged to connect residents to each other and to the many valuable uses of smart grid technology. ComEd and Chicago can together forge the start of a true community of the future. In Bronzeville, a community on Chicago's South Side with a rich legacy of creativity and diversity, and home to educational facilities, healthcare facilities, and thousands of families.
The work that we do in Bronzeville will serve as a model that can then be expanded to other communities.
ComEd has already deployed smart meters to the region, putting control in the hands of Bronzeville residents to reduce energy usage and control costs. And ComEd is deploying smart switches to enable electricity to be rerouted instantaneously when there's a disturbance on the grid. ComEd proposes to develop a microgrid in Bronzeville. A microgrid is a small power grid that keeps power flowing in severe weather and emergency situations to ensure that hospitals can function and emergency responders can serve their communities.
We received a grant from the Department of Energy to build a microgrid controller, which will enable 2 microgrids to operate in parallel. It's the first of its kind.
Microgrids also give residents and communities the ability to embrace green energy. In the community of the future, residents can have access to detailed information about their energy use. They might have smart appliances and devices that can respond to pricing signals and energy markets. Smart traffic lights powered by sensors might optimize their commute to maximize efficiency and time. Smart parking management systems could allow residents to reserve parking spots on their smartphone.
The investments we have made in the smart grid has delivered record reliability and customer satisfaction. We will now be able to leverage this smarter, more reliable and resilient grid to meet the evolving needs of our communities and fuel the 21st century digital economy.
The future, our cleaner energy future, delivering livability and workability in our communities starts now.
Essentially, some of the main themes of Community of the Future are integrating the distributed energy resources with this microgrid How does this best get visualized through what we're doing?
Yeah, I think, as I said, we're trying to test two things. One is technical aspects of a microgrid. We're going to put solar and battery storage in there. We've designed a controller that works across the two microgrids and sets up a microgrid cluster, which is one of the first in the world, the first in the world. But we're also looking at community impact. Bronzeville is a community with a deep history in Chicago, and it's the sort of place where the blues started, and much of the arts in Chicago was housed in Bronzeville as the city developed. And it's had a tough history of recent years, and so we want to go in there and find out if energy infrastructure helps revitalize the community. So we're looking to develop an innovation center, some curricula for the Chicago public schools around the microgrid, so you start to generate some interest in STEM. And so that's the idea.
Your team's gotten a lot of buzz. Some of the media has really picked up on Joseph Vahula really calling it a public purpose microgrid, and sort of help us understand what is really the meaning behind a public. You're talking about a new essential service, essentially.
Yeah. Well, so we don't think that the utilities place in the distributed generation world or the microgrid world is for all purposes. But we do think we can play a unique role. And so one of our views of our place in distributed generation, or microgrids in particular, is critical public infrastructure. And so we have a piece of legislation pending that looks at 5 spots in Illinois: healthcare, the Illinois Medical District, transportation, the airport in Rockford, which is a critical hub, a strategic hub for transportation, first responder services, DuPage County Emergency Center, water pumping. So critical infrastructure that would be needed in the case of any sort of weather volatility or a security threat. And so Bronzeville's a little bit different in that the public purpose aspect of it is, revitalizing the community. Can we go in and do that? And I think, utilities are sort of uniquely positioned to connect with the community, and that's sort of the impetus for that role. So anyway, this is going to wind down here.
And really, this is a commercial center, like you said. It's a commercial center of the community. And so there's, beyond that public purpose of public health, safety, and welfare, which you've established, some of this social network in this community of the future. This community is really bringing in the technology as much as the utility and the city are saying, can we engage in your environment so that we work with you?
Yeah, no.
How important is that in Chicago?
It's huge, and the community is very, very excited about this. We have more people coming out to figure out how the kind of work that they're doing to revitalize the community can connect into all of this. I think what we find in this community and many places in Chicago is that there's a lot of efforts going on, and there's not connective tissue for much of it. And I think the idea behind Bronzeville is that it can become the connective tissue for things that other people are doing, not that we're doing everything, but that we can sort of give a hub, sort of create a hub for that work. So that's Bronzeville, and I will just finish up by saying we are very excited about the revolution at ComEd. We think it's a revolution that really has the capacity to change the world, lead to a cleaner world, and enhance quality of life. We think the electric industry is very well positioned to play a significant role in the shift. And I will say, final word, this is a revolution I have been waiting for all my life. It's a worthy revolution, and it is no Milli Vanilli. Thank you very much.
We have 2 people able to take questions, and I know we're going to have some hands raised. I saw about 40 phones flash on that network of networks slide. And
not the Milli Vanilli?
But I mean, before we, okay, so we have one question coming up, but before that question, just, I will say a few things. Talking about platform economics, we have a video coming out with you where we talk about 30 minutes about how you tie in platform economics into new uses versus usage, the network of networks, the community of the future, the utility of the future, all of that into one tapestry. That's coming out next week. I'm really excited about it. But I mean, just the amount of stuff here that you are sharing that no one else has shared, that no utility CEO has sort of said, hey, we're going to reach that point B, and we're going to do it with our community. I think just the fact that so many people are just taking so many photos for that slide means they're going back and they're going to tell their shop what they learned here. So we have a quick question here. Can you say who you are and sort of say your question, please?
My name is Joseph from Dual Fuel from New York City.
Hi,
Great.
Joseph.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'll stand up. I'm over here. Quick question. If you could take your vision one step further, the utility of the future, going from pipeline to platform to network, and realizing the values within the network itself, which relates to data, optimization, the analytics, using that information for the benefit of the ratepayer, the consumer. In the pipeline paradigm of the 20th century, the need for one company to build out massive infrastructure was clearly apparent. You didn't want to have 20 pipelines in the street. In the network economy that you're envisioning in this century for the utility, the real value is on the network level, on the data level. So for me, for example, in New York City, I would do interconnections with Con Edison, which is the player in New York. It's
I
really an
apologize, but
amalgamation.
if you can wrap up, we do need to get to our next speaker.
Sure.
So,
It's amalgamation of Brooklyn Union Gas, of many different utilities. My question for you is, what happens to all the infrastructure? Why can't we have 5 different companies doing just the infrastructure work within the street, and the utility of the future being just the data, the analytics, the network? Where do you see infrastructure falling within the role of the utility in the future? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No,
Good
thanks,
question.
thanks, Joseph. Yeah, so a couple responses, to that. I think one is, one of the things we have to keep in mind is how do we look for, the most efficient approach to the new world? How do we keep costs down for customers? How do we bend the cost curve, really, is what we ought to be thinking about. And I think to try to think about multiple infrastructure services potentially adds cost. And so one of the theories, and what we're trying to test with this American Water proof of concept that we're doing, is there a way to converge infrastructure to create efficiencies for consumers? And I think that our view is there's some continuing regulation around some sort of organization like that, but there's sort of a cost a cost driver or a way to take cost out of the system, I think, with some sort of convergence. So that's a partial answer to your question, but I think what we also think, which is sort of on the other end of the continuum, is this is a world for many players. While we think we're in a great position to build the platform because we have the infrastructure largely in place, we're building out pieces of it, and we think it's there, and we think we know how to run this. We think we do, we can be more efficient, but we do a pretty good job with it. But this is not a game for one player. This is not, the old world of the vertically integrated utility. I think it starts to become a new world of many players. And that's the idea of the platform, is that you're inviting many players. I may not have the best solution for a customer, but somebody does out there. And so part of the job of the platform provider is to make that connection and do it in a frictionless manner, or a low friction manner, in order to create value for consumers and producers at the same time.
So going where your consumers are in that network of networks. So rather than sort of seeing the technology as the center of the story, seeing the consumer as the center of the story?
Sure, yeah, no, I think the interaction, anything you read on platforms, the focus is not on the product, it's on the interaction. Now, the interaction is facilitated by the technology and the data available, and so that's why when the people or the organizations who can bring to bear the strong management of the technology as well as smart use of the data for the consumer's benefit, I think that's where the game is played.
Absolutely.
In the future.
We have time for one more question before our break.
Ready.
Yes, please. Hey,
Hey,
how's it going? Good to see you.
Paul Barter with Pannoni from Chicago. So thank you for your leadership, and we appreciate that we have such a fantastic CEO in our backyard, so thank you. My question really is about the power generation side of the microgrids. And we've asked this question a couple of times. We know ComEd's leading. We know there are a lot of parties that are in play. Can you just speak about, I know it's kind of pent up in the regulatory body right now, about how are we going to generate electricity in these microgrids? Is ComEd going to own that, or is it somebody else?
Great question.
Yeah, so right now what we envision is that we do own it for these purposes, and we do run it, but I don't think we do that for all purposes. We don't believe that we're the microgrid designer or player for all purposes. What we think is unique about this, and it's really a test, What we've proposed in our legislation is 6 microgrids, one of them being Bronzeville, the rest being around critical public infrastructure, as I indicated, and that this is this actually gets thrown back to the Illinois Commerce Commission for study. And the study is this sort of the best way to spend dollars? Is this the best way to demonstrate resiliency? Is the utility the best player in this space? But I think initially, the way I think about it is when you've got a grid, so right now we have a system where we largely control the resource side, we control the pipeline, and we have a demand side that's pretty not volatile, it's pretty passive. So it's a pretty predictable system, even though if you talk to my operators, they would not tell you that. But compared to what we're going into, which we lose control on the supply side, everybody's in the supply game, the demand side becomes much more volatile, and now you've got to have a grid that pulls all that together. And so we've got to operate in that very dynamic world, and I think part of our thinking around microgrids and a little bit of distributed generation ownership is it gives us a little bit of a cushion or a safety net where we can go. Now, I'm assuming that we're going to have contracts with different sorts of players, whether it's demand management or resources. We'll have all that swirling around, but contracts can fall through, and so having a little bit of an insurance policy that we can go to is part of the thinking there. Whether that proves out at the end of the day, we'll find out, but that's what we're proposing, and that's what we'll ask the Illinois Commerce Commission to take a look at. We're not trying to set the stage, but we do want to test it, before the world moves on.
Well, everyone, and Pramaggiore just laid it all out for you. I mean,
Thanks.
It's incredible. Thank you so much for coming down. We really appreciate it. Next is going to be